with y'all? We getting straight into this video, man. Y'all see the title and the thumbnail? Like the video. Stop playing.
Mossdale Cave Incident. It was June 24th, 1967, and 10 cavers were about to enter Mossdale Cavern to help clear some of the deeper passages and map them out. The two leaders of the group had already explored this cave before, which reassured everyone else. This particular cavern was known for its tight spaces and the very few areas where a person could fully stand. After a few hours inside, 4 of the cavers realized how difficult the cave actually was and decided to return to the surface. They noticed a cloudy sky, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The remaining cavers continued their descent until they reached the far
If you travel as a group, you leave as a group. Why the hell did 4 cavemen, cavers, decide to leave and the other 4 continue? This is some real deal scary stuff right here.
Marathon passage, which measured only 18 inches by 12 inches, with a small stream of water flowing along the bottom. Everything seemed to be going well, and the group on the surface soon noticed that it had started raining, so they took cover. Initially, the rain did not seem concerning, but the cavers inside began to notice rising water levels. When the water became alarmingly high, they decided to end the day's work and head back, even though they were still 3 hours from the entrance. Meanwhile, the surface group spotted something terrifying. A lake of water had formed around the cave's entrance. The cavers inside had no idea how much water was about to flood the cave. The surface group ran to get help.
It's almost as if you should have help on standby when you're going caving, right? Whoever goes caving, man, bless to your heart, for real. Y'all just out there doing stuff.
While the cavers frantically tried to reach higher chambers. However, the water continued to rise, pressing toward their faces. Rescuers and hundreds of volunteers worked tirelessly, pumping water out of the cave and pumping oxygen inside, hoping that the cavers had found a safe chamber. Unfortunately, every one of the cavers drowned. Shaft sinkhole tragedy.
Damn,
It was May 28th, 1970.
Damn, unfortunately, everyone died. And then we just go straight to the next one? God damn, we can't even get a moment of silence for these people. Y'all want to explore things, put a camera on a goddamn drone and fly it down there or something. You know what I'm saying?
And a group of 9 diving experts had planned a dive at Mount Gambier's shaft sinkhole. This sinkhole had a unique feature. There was only a tiny opening leading to a cave with a lake 20 feet below. From this opening, a beam of light went down into the cave and onto the lake, which was extremely helpful for the divers' orientation. This beam was visible throughout most of the cave, unless divers ventured too deep into one of the 2 side branches. Everyone initially agreed that they would stay within a 200-foot maximum depth range so they could remain in the main chamber and still see the guiding light. This was their only plan. On the second day, however, 4 divers planned to go to the western section of the cave.
4? Why in the hell are y'all doing this in the first place? Why are y'all diving into it? Like, what is up with this exploration? Send a goddamn drone down there or something.
Aiming for a depth of 250 feet, which would have been a new record. This was deeper than initially intended and posed a significant risk because in 1973, divers were still using regular air cylinders rather than mixed gas tanks. For this reason, they had to be more cautious as they went downwards because nitrogen narcosis might have settled in. As they went down, the increasing pressure would have pushed the nitrogen into the bloodstream, producing a state of consciousness that is similar to when people are drunk. Keep in mind that these divers were not very experienced in cave diving. They were more accustomed to standard open water scuba diving. This added even more.
Y'all not even experienced cave divers. Like it's an expertise that needs to come with these things. Y'all are just regular divers? Are you serious? Y'all put y'all name in the goddamn death note, bro. Y'all put y'all name in it, y'all damn selves.
Or risk to their plan. They started going downwards into the western section of the cave, and one experienced diver noticed that nitrogen narcosis was kicking in, so he immediately went back out. Several of them followed him and went back to the surface as well, but 4 of them kept going, determined to set the record and get a quick look before resurfacing. After a minute or so, the group at the surface became concerned, realizing the 4 divers would soon exhaust their air supply. A few returned to the cave to find them, and they discovered a flashlight camera on the bottom, but no trace of the divers. There was a problem that we haven't yet mentioned: silt. The movements of the 4 divers stirred up the long settled silt into a sand cloud that would take a lot of time to settle back. This reduced visibility to less than an arm's length, removing any hope for orientation for the underwater divers. Without being able to see anything, oxygen running dangerously low, and nitrogen narcosis kicking in, the 4 divers drowned. Jacob's Well tragedy. It's November 23, 1983, and 2 students from Texas State University, named Richard and Clark, are about to enter Jacob's Well, an underwater hole that leads to an underwater cave. This hole seems relatively shallow, around 25 feet, and many people try to touch the bottom and then come up. However, this is just a deceiving appearance because it actually leads to another underwater cave with 3 chambers. The first 2 are relatively open and easy to get through, but the third one has a really small squeeze to get into it. If you manage to squeeze through, you'll enter a room that is 10 feet tall, and you'll see a really small hole at the farthest edge, too small to pass through. This small tunnel was just 2 feet in diameter, and 2 years prior, 2 people died in it because after they managed to get through, a rock slide filled with gravel blocked them inside. Now, getting back to our 2 students, they were fairly experienced in normal diving, but not in cave diving, and they were trying to get their instructor certification in open water diving. Their instructor, Don, was an incredibly skilled and experienced diver, and he was the one who removed the 2 bodies we just talked about. He used to constantly warn everybody to stay away from Jacob's well since it's deadly, and he even tried to cover up the small hole that leads to the 4th chamber with some cement. But other divers reopened it and left a message that said, "You can't keep us out." Don himself almost died in Jacob's well.
What? You can't keep us out? They're basically saying, we want to die. You can't stop us. That's what they're saying. He is trying to protect y'all. He went and collected the bodies of people who went in that. I'm losing my mind.
When he tried to enter the 4th chamber, a gravel slide trapped him in the tunnel. He almost resigned himself to death. His tank was empty, and he had swallowed some water when his survival instinct kicked in, and he started rapidly moving until he cleared enough gravel to escape. When he did, he saw his diving colleague extending a regulator for him to breathe. As he started resurfacing, the air inside his body expanded until he reached almost 4 times his normal body size. By the time he broke the surface, he was screaming in pain. His belly was huge because his stomach had completely ruptured. These stories caught the attention of Richard and Clark, who wanted to take a look for themselves, even though they didn't really know much about cave diving. On November...
Okay, so these was just college students that just was like, hey, let's just do this stupid thing. Ha! My guy literally retrieved the bodies of people who went down there and passed away, and he also almost passed away himself.
For 23rd, 1983, they went into Jacob's well and reached
the
3rd chamber
80s,
where the small hole was located. Richard removed his tank to get through the hole and started going in while holding his tank. When Clark removed his own oxygen tank and tried to get in, he saw Richard's face and noticed Richard didn't have the tank with him anymore and was suffocating. Clark quickly reached for the regulator and gave it to him, letting him breathe again. They started passing the regulator back and forth as they made their way out, and somehow they managed to get through the tight squeeze of the 3rd chamber. They then began making their way toward the exit until a terrifying sound caught their attention, a clank from their oxygen tank. Not only did this mean they'd hit a wall with the tank, so they were going the wrong direction, but it also meant the tank was almost empty. They realized they'd run into the false chimney in the 1st chamber, a tunnel that looks like it leads to the surface, but is actually a dead end. Clark managed to swim back to the surface and gasped for air after covering an incredible 75 feet in a single breath. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Richard, who remained behind and drowned. When Clark called the police for assistance, Don the instructor himself showed up and was stunned to see his students there. Golem's Cave. It's August 18th, 2005, and a group of 5 friends decided to venture into the Golem Cave, also called the Cave of Death because of how dangerous it was. They reached the entrance.
All right, I don't even want to watch this one. Hey, we gonna watch it, but I'm not even gonna speak on this one, bro. This cave is called the Cave of Death. Come on, bro. Are we serious? The other ones were like, oh, let's explore. Why would you want to explore anything with death in front of it? This cave is called Cave of Death. It is called Cave of Death. Not Cave of Life, not Cave of Journey, Quest, and Exploring. Cave of Joy. It's Cave of Death.
Entrance at 3 a.m., and one of the friends decided to wait for the others outside. They encountered their
Very
first
smart
problem
friend.
when actually trying to get in, as they had to crawl through a small pool of water. After that, there was a fork going left and right, and they chose left, which led them to another small pool of water. This seemingly innocent pool, however, actually led to another section of the cave through an underwater tunnel. The tunnel itself was really small, just 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and to get through it, you had to be completely submerged. This meant only one person at a time could go in, and they had to swim about 15 feet. One by one, they started plunging into the pool of water to reach the other side of the cave, and once they made it, they discovered a section with about 3 feet of airspace. From the perspective of the friend who stayed outside, there was no sound or light coming from inside the cave, and after a while he started to get worried. He went into the cave himself, but heard no noises and saw no lights. Not sure what to do, he first called some friends who had experience with caving, and then called the police. He couldn't have imagined what was happening inside. The 4 friends who went in probably realized that the 3 feet of airspace they'd reached had bad air, which is a term cavers use for air that doesn't have the normal balance of gases, meaning there's more carbon dioxide and less oxygen. This reduces your ability to think, move, and breathe properly, making the return swim through that narrow tunnel super risky. They tried to get back out one at a time, but the first person who went underwater was unable to find the exit hole before running out of breath. That happened because the increased carbon dioxide messed with her ability to hold her breath breath, and think clearly. After 30 to 60 seconds, the second person went in and found the first one, and so on, until all of them got stuck in the tunnel. The police arrived and tried to pump in oxygen and pump out water, while family and friends waited anxiously outside the cave. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. The bodies were later recovered, and the cave was eventually closed off with cement. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for
Cave
the
of
next one,
Death. Let's
join my
close it
Discord.
off now.
Link in the
Y'all should have been
description.
closed it off, bro. What the
This
hell?
is what
Y'all should have been closed the damn cave off if it got the name of death.